And we continue at 2:07 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, The John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, all afternoon I've been playing clips from Gavin Newsom's movie that he self-narrated and maybe self-produced that he put on the Governor of California YouTube channel called The California Way. I teased this and I found the clip. Here's Gavin Newsom in his movie that he narrates, walking through San Quentin and getting congratulated by prisoners.
Doing an excellent job, man.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother.
We're all proud of you, man.
Bless you, man.
He's probably thinking to himself, if only that cell block could vote. What does that tell you? When the man gets heckled everywhere he goes, except San Quentin, where they love him.
Doing an excellent job, man.
You're doing an excellent job, man.
Oh, I'm sure he went home that day and looked his wife right in the eye and said, you should have seen me today at San Quentin. I was like Johnny F. and Cash.
But it just didn't feel big enough.
Well, if you spend more time at San Quentin.
I receive things on both ends.
800-222-KABC is telephone number 1-800-222-5222. It is a pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is author of the book, They're Not Listening, How the Elites Created the National Populist Revolution, available online at Amazon.com. Ryan Girdusky. Ryan, welcome.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. I need you to put your Kamala English decoder ring on, and I'm going to play a clip for you, and I want you to tell me what the hell she was trying to say.
And I think the first part of this issue that should be articulated is AI is kind of a fancy thing. It's, first of all, it's 2 letters. It means artificial intelligence. But ultimately what it is it's about machine learning. And so the machine is taught. And part of the issue here is what information is going into the machine that will then determine, and we can predict then, if we think about what information is going in, what then will be produced in terms of decisions and opinions that may be made through that process.
Have you ever seen a politician that uses so many words to say nothing?
I'm just so glad that you stopped dancing to Padam at the Stonewall with Andy Cohen. I mean, that alone is a relief that Kamala has moved on from that phase of her life. Yes, you're right. When they have that many words to say and it doesn't actually mean anything, it is like a show Veep, and she is Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And that is why, there are many reasons why, but that is one of the reasons why she is the least popular president in least popular vice president in American political history. It's bad when when she is dragging Joe Biden down.
Well, let's say he wins re-election and something happens to him, which generally happens to people when they get to be his age. The likelihood that she would be president is very high. You can't give this woman the nuclear codes.
No, you can't give her the codes to the gym. After hours, I wouldn't do that. No, she's a mess, and this is somebody who has always ascended to power for the sake of power. This is a woman who said without flinching that no one should get vaccinated so long as Donald Trump is president. And then immediately, as soon as she was the vice president, we need to get vaccinated. It was the same exact vaccine. It meant literally nothing. It was just power for the sake of power. And that has been the entire trajectory of Kamala Harris's career. I think the only time that she ever actually had a vision to do something was when she was DA of San Francisco. She was really trying to actually do something, I think, as far as actually getting some effort to get kids into school and I guess arrest the homeless or whatever the hell she was doing. But she was actually doing something there. Every other position, because it's mostly been legislative positions that she has done, she has been decoration on the wall.
Let's shift gears here and talk about the Republican primary, even though it's a long way away. Certainly we get inundated with news on a daily basis, and if you're on social media, it's just never ending. But I had high hopes for Ron DeSantis. I thought Ron DeSantis was a great governor, is a great governor of the state of Florida. I spent a lot of time in Florida since he was elected, and that's a state where the government actually works. He's a guy who ideologically is largely on the same page as me, but he's competent. He knows how to run a state. And I thought this would be an easy call for me to support him for president. But he's been such an awful candidate, whether it's the 6-week abortion ban that he didn't have to do, and that will be hung around his neck if he's the Republican nominee, to the video about the gays that they then pulled down that created a bunch of blowback. The advocates of his, I don't know if they're paid or not, on Twitter, who just seem to be getting involved in nasty fights with anyone who has a keyboard just 24/7. It just seems like a ship that's sinking. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm supporting Ron DeSantis. I've made it pretty publicly known I'm supporting Ron DeSantis. And part of the reason, and I'm somebody who would have crawled on broken glass to vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I was his biggest supporter, and I was just let down by him. As a candidate, I think DeSantis has made the miscalculation that Ted Cruz made in 2016. The parallels between Cruz in 16 and DeSantis in 2024 are extremely similar. And by the way, they have a very similar campaign staff as well. So it
It's
may
the
not
same
be that.
people. It's Roe.
Roe is a super PAC. A lot of Roe's people are on the campaign. But the whole idea, I'm going to get to the right of Donald Trump on every single solitary issue. Evangelicals, so let's take the abortion ban, for example. Evangelicals, like many other voting demographics, like Hasidic Jews, for example, another big demographic, voter pools that are transactional voters. So you don't need to be a Hasidic Jew to win the support of Hasidic Jews. You don't need to be an evangelical to win the support of evangelicals. You don't have to be religious. You just have to say, here's the 5 things that you want done. Okay, you want that done? Fine. I will get those things done. Give me your support. Give me your vote. And that's how the politics works like that. And that is why Donald Trump, who said point blank, I've never asked for God's forgiveness one day in my life, was insanely popular with the evangelicals. They knew he wasn't one of them. It was just that he was getting their stuff done, and that's all that matters. DeSantis has done this thing where he is trying to get to the right on him on every issue, and that is not conducive to actually winning over their support. The 6-week abortion ban, a terrible idea. That gay video, which if no one saw it on Twitter, you saved yourself 2.5 minutes, where it was like literally incoherent and there's half-naked bodybuilders. That was the strangest thing about that wasn't even made by the DeSantis campaign. Some person put that on Twitter and they shared it and refused to unshare it and had to own it. And it was like nonsensical and insane about a nothing issue about Caitlyn Jenner using Trump Tower bathroom, which no one cares about, and refusing to claw back from it. Rather, the problem is that campaign is being reflective of a campaign from 2012, not from 2023. The issues facing Americans are complex, and DeSantis is a very successful governor because although he is not a moderate, he moderated his positions on several issues, increasing teachers' wages, public school teachers' wages, protecting the local environment, doing a bunch of things with animal protection, making sure that first responders could get home mortgages in expensive parts of the state. Stuff like that is very nuanced and detailed, and, it doesn't fall with an easy paradigm of right versus left. That is not how he has run the last year of his time as governor, and that is not how he's run for president. And the biggest problem that he has, and I have said this to every person in this campaign who's willing to listen, he doesn't have a national message. America being Florida is not a national message. You can't plant palm trees in Michigan. I've said this over and over and over and over again. Not everyone wants to move to the state. What are you going to do as the president of the United States for the people who want to live in New Hampshire, who want to live in Michigan, who want to live in Ohio, who want to be there, who enjoy their communities. Don't tell me what you did as governor of Florida. Tell me what you are going to do. That is a big, big part of it. So running to the right on every issue, like it's a different year than it actually is, missing the national narrative, and also, and lastly, most importantly, he's not doing combative television interviews, and he should be. He should be sitting there and debating people and making the left head explode, because that would make us love him more, because that's how reactionary our politics are. It's not fought over Twitter fights with people that only, 10,000 people in the whole country of 330 million know.
I'll tell you what else I think has been bad for him. COVID, in many ways, caused a lot of decks to shuffle. And one of those decks was population patterns. A lot of conservatives in blue states moved from their blue states, which were shut down, and they couldn't leave their homes. They were forced to wear the mask everywhere they went. They were forced to get the shot. Maybe they didn't want to get the shot. And they said, screw it, I'm moving to the free state of Florida. And that not only happened with the population at large, it happened with the social media influencers on the right. And these people have huge followings. They have a lot of people in that space that pay attention to them, but they have no credibility and they have no cachet outside of that world at all. But if you're in the bubble, they seem like a big deal. They also give absolutely horrific advice, and they don't know half as much as they think they do. And those people seem to have his ear, and he's listening to them, and he's paying attention to them, and they're absolutely causing his campaign to crash and burn.
Well, I hope you're not talking about me, because I'm in Florida.
Wait, did you move?
No, of course.
Okay.
No, I'm gonna. With this accent, I would be thrown out of the state. No, there are people who are missing the pulse of where the country are. Who is the biggest? I don't know if you know this. Who is the biggest voter demographic that voted for Joe Biden in 2020? Do you know?
Probably whites without college educations.
Yes, exactly. Whites without college degrees made up 1 out of every 3 votes for Joe Biden. 1 out of every 3. So knowing that is a gigantic demographic that Republicans should own. They should own them like Democrats own the black vote. Why aren't you leaning into the concerns of that community? The people who really are, they are there with you 30% of the way, and you need to win 10% of them over. So maybe you need to move the needle left on a position like healthcare, or move the needle left on a position of an economic populist position to win over. Because if you take 10% of their vote away from Biden, you're the president of the United States in the general election. And you're speaking to Trump's base as well. I think I've said this over and over and over again. It's not just the culture war stuff. A man can't live on culture war alone. You need economic populism. You need to sit there and say how you're going to revive people. What I would have liked, what I have actually advised people at DeSantis' campaign to say, and what I said over and over and over again, so I was blue in the face and no one repeated it, was, the affirmative action case was coming up. Yes, it was a lot about Asians. There's a lot about whites as well. White people who feel like they've been discriminated against. And DeSantis went to Yale University, in part because he's smart and part because he was a great baseball player. And he says this in his book and stuff. If DeSantis was 25 years younger than how he is now, he probably would not have gotten into Yale because of the color of his skin and because he's a heterosexual white man. And he should have talked to that. He should have talked to the issues of lowering opportunity to people who feel like they have to fight for everything and get nowhere and are pushed around and pushed down and spit upon by the institution that the people on the right hate. And that's the conversation. If he wants to make it in this last quarter, that's the conversations he needs to have. He needs to make them feel like he knows their pain. It's not all about wokeness all the time. And I run a freaking pack against wokeness for the schools. So I'm not saying that that's a completely illegitimate argument, but it's not the argument most people are having, any given day.
Glenn Youngkin, the popular governor of Virginia, said he's not running for president. But every once in a while, you hear rumblings where there are people in the Republican Party who think that Ron DeSantis does not have the ability to beat Trump. They don't want Trump to be the nominee. And Glenn Youngkin is a name that keeps getting repeated over and over and over again. Today it was reported that Rupert Murdoch now wants Glenn Youngkin to jump into the race. Do you think he's going to run? And if so, what kind of candidate do you think he'd be?
Well, Glenn Youngkin is actually hyper-religious. Remember, Glenn Youngkin in 2021 said he was opposed to gay marriage in Virginia. Like, that's how he ran for governor. It gets swept under the rug because the Democrats said parents shouldn't be involved in their kids' education. And people were like, whoa, which is the crazier thing? Glenn Youngkin is actually, I mean, DeSantis, for all his crowing about stuff, is not, to me, as my opinion is, like a extremely religious person. Glenn Youngkin actually is. So the idea that Glenn Youngkin is going to be moderate on these social issues, I think, is a fanciful idea. I don't think it's true at all. And also the most important thing is that Youngkin has the election in November for the Virginia state legislature, and they need to win that. So Youngkin could have 2 years of actually getting a lot of stuff done. He has the state house, not the state senate now.
In 1992, Bill Clinton was able to win the presidential election with something like 43% of the popular vote and 60-some-odd% of the electoral votes. He was able to do that because Ross Perot ran as a third-party candidate on the reform ticket and did reasonably well by third-party standards. We now have at least 3 different candidates who could, in theory, become third-party candidates this time around. We have Cornel West, who's already announced that he's running and who might provide a very safe place, particularly for black male voters who are unhappy with Joe Biden. And you look, by the way, at the criticism that Biden's receiving on the left. A lot of it is coming from black men. Charlemagne the God, Stephen A. Smith, Dave Chappelle, and others have been very critical of Joe Biden. Then you have the No Labels group, who is kicking tires on running Joe Manchin. The word is that if Trump is the nominee, they're going to run a candidate, a Joe Manchin type of candidate. And if Trump is not the nominee, they're just going to go away. And then you also have the possibility that if the Democrats totally rig the primary to make sure that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. doesn't have a voice to make his argument in front of Democratic voters. They say they're not going to have debates. They say they're not going to do a bunch of things they typically do, and they don't want people to hear his message. So if he gets mistreated enough, I guess he is a potential third-party candidate. If you have 3 or more third-party candidates on the ballot, to my eye, that creates a scenario where if Trump is the nominee, he could, in theory, win by getting all of the MAGA people to vote for him and put together 42, 43% of the vote and have enough electoral votes to be the president.
Yeah, and if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. I think that this is a lot of, is there a recession? Is an asteroid going to hit the top 30 metropolitan districts? Are all these people going to run? I don't think. I mean, you'd have to have a lot of things go right for. I mean, Cornel West would have to get some traction outside of going on like the Bill Maher show. Like, you'd have to get some people to do some things very, very, very wrong and appeal to some pockets of demographics. I think voter turnout will overall be lower than 2020 because it's not COVID. There's less mail-ins. But it's going to be a lot of people. And I think the obstacle that Trump has is, one, a lot of his supporters since 2016 have died. Secondly, a lot of Generation Z people are now 18 and are voting, and they're voting at much higher numbers. And thirdly, the biggest supporters that he has, which are the non-college educated whites, 44 million of them as of 2016 were not registered to vote, and he has made no effort whatsoever to actually get them to register to vote. So I don't see, yeah, maybe if everything landed perfectly, but Joe Biden is not Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden is just not this hated monster the way that Hillary was. Maybe they can have him on. They'll have the third-party candidates on Morning Joe. They'll ask him where Aleppo is. They won't know the answer. Maybe they'll relive 2016, which was this perfect combination to get a guy like Trump to run. But I think at the end of the day, if I was a betting man, I would put the odds on Joe Biden being our president for 4 years if Donald Trump is the nominee.
Ryan Girdusky, author of They're Not Listening, How the Elites Created the National Populist Revolution. You can get it online at Amazon.com. Thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. As we mentioned before, the state of California has a U.S. Senate seat that will be on the ballot in November. The candidate who is raising all the money in that race is Burbank Congressman Adam Schiff. Don't be near any open windows as you hear those facts, because it's looking like he's going to be the next U.S. Senator, and I don't want you to do anything rash.
He has raised so much money, he could hire actual comedians to do his stand-up material.
So the most boring man alive has decided to talk to many people in the press about his campaign and what he would do for the people of California.
And what I love is one question that always comes up in these interviews, especially for people that aren't super tuned into the California issues, is, hey, didn't Gavin Newsom say he was going to appoint that job to a black woman? You're not a black woman, Adam Schiff. What's up?
Let's hear it.
Here's CBS News.
You are all competing for the seat that is currently held by Dianne Feinstein, who said she's not going to run for another term. But Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, of course, said that if she were to retire early, that he would appoint a black woman to that seat. What do you say to critics who say that, this is an opportunity to diversify the U.S. Senate?
Look, I think that race and gender are going to be really important factors. I think voters will consider those factors.
But at the end of the day, you should vote for a white bald man.
Aspiring comic.
And I think they should. But I think they'll consider other factors as well. I think they'll consider who has demonstrated the greatest leadership in the House, who has a record of actually getting things done, who can lead.
Is that a shot at Katie Porter or Barbara Lee or both?
Well, it's also a platitude.
Who has a record of actually getting things done.
What has he gotten done? I mean, I will say he gets a lot of credit for getting the federal government to recognize the Armenian genocide. But outside of that, what has he done?
He brags about bringing money from the federal government back to California so L.A. County can spend it on the homeless.
That's what every congressman does.
Who has a record of actually getting things done. Who can lead California into the future. Who can attack the problem of.
Boy, this is a bucket full of cliches if I've ever heard one.
That's what he likes to do.
Who can lead California into the future? Who can attack the problem of homelessness and the unaffordability of housing?
That's right. There's no homeless in his district.
No. Are you kidding? In West Hollywood?
I have the strongest record on these things, and I think voters should and will consider those factors too. And I'm confident that they will weigh where the priorities should be and who they want to select to represent them. But in my travels throughout California, what I'm hearing most is people are looking for someone who will get things done, who will work.
You said that already.
Another cliche.
Is people are looking for someone who will get things done, who will work with others and get things done.
You just said it again.
He is so bad. People think because he raises a ton of money and he's been around a long time and Pelosi made him the impeachment manager that this guy is really sharp and this guy is a shrewd politician who really understands the game. And then you hear him talk and you say to yourself, how the hell did this guy get to be where he is?
He's losing his train of thought. He goes to the bottomless well that is a bucket of cliches, and he grabs the same one twice in one sentence.
But in my travels throughout California, what I'm hearing most is people are looking for someone who will get things done, who will work with others and get things done.
That is Adam Schiff in one clip.
To address some real serious challenges the state has, particularly the cost of housing and the epidemic of homelessness.
Because you know how cheap homes have gotten in West Hollywood and Burbank and Glendale.
Oh, yeah. They're practically giving them away.